Hello, my name is Francesca Ramota, and today I'll be discussing the global issue of the impact that political abuse has on individual freedom. Now, political abuse deprives people of individual freedom because it forces them to live in conformity and follow certain rules due to the fear of what would happen if they didn't. Now, this issue is very important nowadays because many countries are under very authoritarian and strict regimes that force people to go against their basic human rights. Now, this issue can be seen very present in the graphic novel Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, more specifically in Chapter 10, The Trip, in which the Islamic regime decides to become much more strict and oppressive due to Iranian fundamentalists taking over the US Embassy. And right before borders close, Marjane's family decides to take a trip to Europe to find out when they return that Iran is at war with Iraq. Now, Marjane uses black and white illustrations, contrast, panel structure, exaggerated facial expressions, and dialogue to emphasize how fear and oppression has taken over people's lives in this chapter. Now, there is a huge contrast that Marjane shows in this chapter in between the pre and post existing beliefs over the revolutionary idea of freedom because there is a huge disappearance from the beginning of the chapter where people fight for their freedom and to the end where they decide to dim and hide their ideology of fighting for freedom. Now, on the other hand, Marjane also uses exaggerated facial expressions to show how people fear the regime and how they fear of not following rules. And this can be seen when Marjane's mother is attacked by two men and threatened by two men because she's not wearing a veil. So then she fears, and it can be seen in her facial expressions, of what would happen if she does that again. Now, the strict regime affects Marjane's family and makes the characters, such as Marjane's family, to shut their voice and stop fighting for individual freedom because they want to ensure their safety. Now, this issue presented in the novel can be seen nowadays, like I mentioned before. And now, an example of that is the Taliban in Afghanistan, where women are specifically targeted, and the Taliban enforces these rules over their dress code and them not being able to work or seek for education, and they punish them if they don't follow these rules. Now, there is a huge contrast also in the beginning of the novel in which Margie embraces the Western culture and she hides under her covers and tries to listen to the Western radio. And to the end of the novel, or like a shift to this part of the novel, in which Margie is hiding her true ideas and what she fights for. Now, this also can be seen as well for Margie's family, in which they also start to dim their ideology of individual freedom due to the fear of what would happen if they wouldn't. Now, this chapter highlights how strict regimes does not only affect people on the outside, but also internally, and how characters in the novel are forced to live in conformity and hide their true selves, which little by little kills them internally. In this global issue, and the introduction of the regime's authority to Iran, there is both the supporting and opposing points of view, in which the supporting points of view believe that change will lead to independence in their country, and the opposing points of view to the regime believes that change hides their true self and deprives them of their freedom. Now, this issue is very important nowadays because, like I mentioned, it is very present in many countries, and political abuse is taking over people's lives. This can be seen in countries such as Afghanistan, like I mentioned, or North Korea, and even Cuba, which are just a few of the countries that are living under oppressive regimes. So it is important to take action and fight for those countries' freedoms. Thank you.